Welcome to the second last talk of the day. It's titled 90s Website in 2023 in Compose for Science. Who am I kidding? It's not for science. It's for fun, and it's for the GIFs, or the GIFs, but I feel really weird saying GIFs, so I'm going to say GIFs. Who am I? I'm Maia Grotepass. That's my Twitter handle, but if you just search for Maia today, you'll find me in all the places. And there is also a Git repo attached to this talk. So, there are two kinds of people that play with their Rubik's Cube. The first kind put their hands on the table, someone starts the stopwatch, and then they take a muddled cube, and then they solve it, and then they put their hands on the table, and then they get the time for the time that they solve the Rubik's Cube. And then there are the other kinds of people that solve Rubik's Cubes, like me. I kind of feel what it feels like. Maybe I move a few colors around. Maybe I try and prize off one of those little blocks. Maybe I look at the colors. Maybe I wonder about bigger ones and smaller ones. And my feeling is that when we develop in our day-to-day, we get a set of requirements. We sit with our hands on the table. There's a deadline. And then we've got to solve the problem. And then sometimes we don't have time to, weigh the Rubik's Cube in our hand and see how it feels. And just for fun, just explore. So I decided I wanted to look at Jetpack Compose, animation specifically, and I looked at it through the lens of a 90s website, and my intention wasn't to build the perfect thing. My intention was just to have a go at it and see what it felt like. Now, before building a 90s-style website, I did some research about the aesthetic of design in the 80s, because the 80s precedes the 90s, and to be able to build an authentic 90s website, I had a look at design. Now, the guy here on the left, let me see if I can, this person, his name is Ettore Sozzas. I think that's the pronunciation. If there are any Italians, you can come and tell me afterwards if I'm saying it correctly. He lived in Milan. I think he's still alive, and he was part of a group called Memphis Design. Now, Memphis Design designed furniture and interiors, and they broke away from the past. The past was modernism, form follows function, and they said form follows fun. Now, I don't think they said form follows fun. I think they said something like form follows emotion, but their work was characterized by them using everyday materials, cheaper materials, perspex, bright colors. Here you can see primary colors, pastel colors. And why I'm mentioning this is that in the 80s there was MTV, and this design process, or this design aesthetic, made a huge difference to the 80s. So much so that if I show you this picture at the bottom there, you will tell me it's from the 80s. And why? It's because it's got all of those geometric shapes, it's got pastels, it's got bright colors, and it's got primary colors. So that's the kind of design aesthetic that was around in the 80s, and that kind of bled into the 90s. Also, to build a proper 90s website, you need to look at what the tech was. Now, this is a screenshot of Netscape Navigator, and I think it's 1994, 1995. The internet started around 1991. The websites were pretty boring. They had Times New Roman. It was gray. You sometimes had an image. And then around 1994, 95, this version of Netscape specifically, it supported animated GIFs, which was a huge thing, of course, because now you could have movements on the screen. The second reason I have this screenshot here is because this particular version of Netscape Navigator was the first browser that had JavaScript in it. Why is this important? Because then you could have a cursor that could also be snowflakes or hearts or confetti. You could have those cursors. In the same sort of tech sphere, the GIFs started at CompuServe. So CompuServe, there's people were sharing these little animated images since before the internet. It comes from CompuServe. And at about the same time, the mid-90s, there was GeoCities. I think there's one version of the label and the other version of the label. And GeoCities allowed people to build their own websites for free. So they could design whatever they wanted in any way they want. And so you can see the design influences from the 80s and the tech that supported these 90s-style websites in the tech at the time. So I drew you a timeline. This is not to scale. It's not correct according to history, but it's my version. So what we have here, 1981, Memphis Design starts, Rubik's Cubes in store, My Little Pony, Generation 1 and 2. Around about 1987 here, we've got CompuServe, we've got Memphis Ends about by that time, Mullets, Multicolored Pants, CompuServe, and the GIFs appear on the scene. Around about 1990, the first websites, web browsers, mostly Times New Roman, and there's a troll doll frenzy in the shops. About 1994-95, that's the Netscape with the looping GIFs and the JavaScript and GeoCities and free websites. 2000, we're not going to stay there long, Y2K bug, recessions, pandemics, and now we're here, 2023, and what we have is Compose multi-platform and ChatGPT. So this is where we are. So now this is the disclaimer slide. When I started the project, I built it on Android. Shortly afterwards, I decided, okay, well, let's see if these things work in desktop, because desktop is stable, multi-platform desktop is stable. Okay, yeah, so these things work on desktop as well. And then, just before I had to give this talk for the first time, JetBrains announced the alpha of Compose on iOS. I thought, well, yes, well, maybe I should also try it on iOS. So this talk started out on mobile, but it's not. It's now a multi-platform repo, and it's on all the platforms. I'm not going to talk exactly about how I did the multi-platform thing, because all of the Compose stuff worked. The piece that didn't work was how to access the resources, like the fonts and the images and the GIFs, in a place where it's in one place only and it's not shared across the platforms, and some places it didn't work. It didn't work properly. So in some of the apps, typically the Android app, if there's an animated GIF, you're going to see this broken file because it didn't work in there. And on iOS, the fonts don't work properly. And also, if you get tiling backgrounds in iOS, the app's going to crash. But I will demonstrate that in a moment. There is a library to do this. It's not in this talk. You can go and look on the internet for the library. I think it's called Moco, which makes this much easier. Okay, enough talk, more code. Now, I'm at this conference, and I listen to some talks about performance. And usually this talk is code, and it's a live code kind of demo kind of thing. And I am pretty sure a lot of you have already done some animation and have done some coding. So I'm going to shake up this talk. It is not going to be a live coding anymore. It is going to be a live code review. And so how it's going to work is, I'm going to show you a visual of a thing. You can think how you would have coded it. I will show you how I coded it. And I was tempted last night to fix all of the performance problems, because I've got performance problems in the code. But how we're going to do this is, you are going to tell me code review style of a thing. Now, the rules are, no naming conventions, no nitpicking, but if you spot a thing where you think I could improve the performance, then you can put your hand up, and then we can have a quick discussion about it. This is risky, not because I'm going to get shredded by hecklers, but because I might run out of time. So we're only going to do this until about 1:45, and then I might just show you some examples, and then we'll wrap up with a demo in the end. So we've got some time. To sweeten the deal, though, I have these 4 books. They're by Marcel Muscala. And if you can convince me that I should put a to-do in my code to fix a thing, you can get a book. But because I know not everybody's done animations and Compose before, one of the books are just going to be for a really good question that someone asks me. Okay, so 3 for code review feedback, and 1 for someone who's maybe not done any performance or code review, and they're here. And we can get to them in a moment. So I will swipe. So I'm in Android Studio. This here is the overview of the talk. It's the app running on desktop. I also have here the app running on iOS and the app running on Android. So you can see, pretty similar. So I said we had Times New Roman, and we had, I picked another font, Comic Sans. So the first thing I've got here in my theme, I've got this switch. So any of the screens we look at, we can decide if we want to see them in Comic Sans or if we want to see them in Times New Roman. This navigation is a super simple navigation. It's got an enum with a composable at the top, and it just drops you into another screen for each of them. And then if you want to come out, then you click the home button. The next thing I've got to tell you about animated GIFs are that they only supported a limited amount of colors, 256, I think it was. And those browsers only supported I think it's 216 colors, a very limited amount of colors. So the first thing I did was I looked at the WebSafe colors. I don't know if anybody remembers the WebSafe colors, but I looked at the WebSafe colors and I created for myself a palette. So here we have color swatches. Okay? But now the WebSafe colors, they never had any names. So there you can see, broken file because of the animated GIFs. They don't have names, and so I decided to give my colors my own names. Weirdly, I somehow didn't use boiled spinach much when I built the app, nor did I use aubergine, but I did use sherbet bomb, and I think I used Oros and my pony hair, so some of the more brighter colors I used. Okay, so we've got fonts, we've got colors. Can you see a kind of a design system growing here? I mean, it's a little bit odd, but it's a design system growing here. Okay, so we've got the colors. Then the next thing is Memphis design. Okay, we'll do Memphis design on the others too, just for a bit of a demo. I'm going to stop doing the demos on the other apps to show you. So, tribute to Memphis design. Now, an important thing about Compose is that all of these composables, they get their state in from their parameters. Anybody who's done Compose knows this. And so what I'll show you here is the state for this thing. Here it is on the side here. I have these sliders with which I can adjust the Memphisness of the Memphis design, okay? Ooh, that's maybe a bit intense. Let's just do that. Okay, so I want to switch off all of them, and I just want to switch on the donuts. Because what I want to show you is, now there's an interesting thing about these donuts. When I started them, I just scattered them randomly on the screen, and that didn't look right. And I'm going to show you in the next section how I fixed that. But what you can see here is like if I make the spacing bigger or smaller, you can see they're actually spread across the screen evenly. The other thing I wanted to show you here is that I'm actually simulating an animation here. So I have state on the side here. And just by sliding these sliders, I'm actually changing the value. And that is the core of the animation system in Jetpack Compose. If you can change value that changes how something looks on the screen, then you've got an animation. Here, it's just me doing it with a slider, but if you can do that programmatically, whether you're triggering it out of a coroutine, whether you're triggering it with the animation libraries, that's the core of the animation. And that realization is actually pretty powerful because it means any parameter on any view that you want to change, you can animate. Okay, so we'll take Memphis design out of the way here. Now let's quickly look at the code. Here, tribute to Memphis design. I think I'm going to change glasses here because I can't see. Okay. Tribute to Memphis design. I've got a Memphis composable. You can see it takes the state in. It's a surface. It just draws all the triangles, all the donuts, all the waves. Okay? They take the choices in there to adjust how they're going to look. If I click into donuts, you'll see box with constraints. Why do I need box with constraints? Because here I'm calling this function build Poisson disk points. Now, a Poisson disk distribution is a distribution where the dots aren't randomly scattered across the screen. They're spaced evenly like polka dots on a screen. And so these points just give me x, y coordinates of where to draw the dots. And then I literally loop through the points and draw a circle. Depending a little bit on the state, it's either going to be filled or not filled here from the choices. Okay. Now, code review time. You're up. Anybody? I need the other glasses. No? Anybody? Do you want the clue? Okay. This build Poisson disks is a heavy operation. So it means it's going to run every time there's a recomposition. And that's going to not be good for, my gut feel is it's not going to be good for performance. So in a further example, I've put that into a remember. The next thing is, I learned yesterday that this box with constraints is also potentially a performance problem. And so I should actually be using another way to get the size, because I only need the size of the composable here for my build Poisson disks. Okay, does that mean I get the book? Okay. All right, let's see. I'm going to go to the next. Okay, we'll go to a next example. So now we've got the Memphis design background. But those backgrounds aren't actually, that's not very typical of 90s websites. So here you can just see briefly what it looks like. If you do the dots randomly, then it looks like that. And then the dots Poisson distribution looks like this in the bottom. Now, I'm not going to go into this code because I literally just ask ChatGPT, give me the Poisson distribution in Kotlin. The most difficult part of this actual code is, besides now understanding how it works, was to figure out what the name was that I had to search for that gives me these polka dots. Okay, so that's the Poisson disks. So now, those 90s websites, their backgrounds actually looked more like this. They looked more like this. So you can see here there's an image, and it's repeating. Stars, image, and repeating. So that's what those websites used for backgrounds. That's how they did that. So let's just find the stars we did, the wallpaper, and we'll do the wallpaper. So how do you build a repeating image like that in Compose? Does anybody know? Okay. So another useful thing about Compose is this concept of a brush. Now, what I like about brushes are you can use them in backgrounds, you can use them for fonts, you can use them in shapes, you can use them for fills, you can use them anywhere. So if you create a brush, any kind of brush you like, then they're super versatile and you can use them in lots of different places. So this is the brush I created for this one. It's a shader brush. It's an image shader, and the secret to get it to repeat like that is just by setting the tile mode X and the tile mode Y to repeat it. And then, once you have this brush, it's as simple as filling in the brush in the background like that, and you get the tile background. And here you can see I'm remembering this brush. So this code review part here, I should be okay to get my merge request in. Okay, so now we have fonts, colors, background, wallpaper. No 90s website would be complete without a blink tag. Okay. So let's find the blink tag here. So the blink tag I created a blink tag, and you can just pass in the slot, the content slot. It will make anything you pass in the content slot blink. And this is our first animation library. It's as simple as infinite transition. Remember infinite transition? I'm animating a float because the float is the value from 0 to 1 to make it blink like that. The thing, though, is if you look at it, it stays on longer than it flashes off. So it's on, off, on, like that. And the way that you achieve that is with the keyframes. You tell it what it needs to be at what duration with the keyframes, and that's how you can actually control the blink tag. Now, that's not all. We have this vulnerable ghost over here. I don't know if anybody's ever played Pac-Man, but if you click on the vulnerable ghost, you'll see some more ghosts appear, and they're scrolling across the screen. Okay, now let's find that for you. It'll help if I'm in the right tab. Blink, blink, blink screen. Let's go twice. So the first animation we had was that vulnerable ghost who made the other ghosts slide out from the bottom. And that we're doing like this, ghosts. We're setting up a state of whether the other ghosts are visible or whether they're hidden. And then we're just using animated visibility, and we're sliding out these ghosts. And these ghosts, if I think we're going to here, I have 4, Clyde, Inky, Pinky, and Blinky. They're in a column. I've got the basic marquee modifier. Now, the basic marquee modifier won't marquee if everything fits into the space. So the way that you make them scroll, okay, the thing though is they only scroll for a few times. You have to click it again to make them scroll again. The way that you make them actually scroll is by making the space within which those ghosts are running limited, smaller than what they are, and then you get the scrolling. And that's why there's a modifier here that sets the width to 300, so I can get the ghost scrolling. Any code review comments here? Yes, first code. Yes, yes, fantastic. Okay, let me go back to blink tag. That's worth it to do, I would say. Okay, okay, blink tag. Where's my blink tag? Okay, no. Blink tag. I'm going to say here to do investigate lambda for alpha change. Well spotted. I hadn't even thought about that. Okay, and you get a book. This is your book, right? You can fetch it now or later. Ooh, shoelace. Well done. Okay, right. So we've got the blink tag, we've got the ghosts, they're appearing, they're scrolling. What's next? A visitor counter, right? Let's just see if I can find the visitor counter here. Blink tag, visitor counter. Okay. So the visitor counter, there's an example in the Android animations about how to do animated visibility like that does that kind of sliding in, because if you have a look here, let me go up, up, down, down, up, 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 down, down, down. So the example in the Android, developer Android documentation for this particular technique gives you what's happening at the bottom here. If you're going up here like this, you see the whole field is sliding like that, depending on the value. And the one at the top here, they're actually individually rolling up. Okay, so how I approach this is I broke it down into a cell. I used the example that comes in the Android documentation with an animated content. The slide, it's just a text inside it, and then the transition spec says what has to happen if it's bigger or smaller, how must the animation work for animated content, and depending on whether it's bigger or smaller, it either slides in from the top or from the bottom, and it fades in and fades out. You can see here, slide out vertically, the in and the out, and then the offsets control. Now this is an example that comes from Android, but how you then make it work so that every single number on its own animates is like this. So I literally just split each number into a counter cell like that. I did some mathematics over here to figure out what its value is. And then, so these ones over here, they're little animated visibility cells, counter cells themselves, each individually to animate, to make the cells animate individually. Okay. I'm going to carry on in the essence of time, but if you think of anything that you think I should be doing differently, then just shout out and tell me. Okay, so we've got a visitor counter now. The next thing we want is rainbow text. Okay. So rainbow text. We're not going to look at all of the rainbow text. Where's the rainbow text now? Rainbow text. We're not going to look at all of them because there are too many of them. We are going to look at just the ones that have got the hot label on them. So, rainbow text. Demos. Rainbow text. Smooth text. So the one you can see at the top there, it's a smooth change. The colors change smoothly. This one changes from between that cyan color and that purple color. And this one changes between multiple different colors. And then this one changes, each of the letters change differently. And then we have one of these shimmer ones at the bottom. So the rainbow animation, I created an animation. And I learned this morning that this method call needs to start with a small letter, which I have, because it's returning something. And this is the animation. It's got a remember infinite transition in the middle here. And it's animating the color from the first to the last. Now, if you look here, you'll see that the rainbow is a list of colors. So it's got all of the rainbow colors coming in as a parameter over here. And if you just animate it between the first and the last, you get this top one, which just animates between the first color and the last color, and it doesn't jump in the in-between rainbow colors. And the way that you make it jump to the in-between rainbow colors is, again, using the keyframes. So the keyframes here basically calculate, depending on how long you said the animation should be, it figures out what the delay is, and then for each of the colors in the rainbow, it sets what color it needs to have at what interval. And that's how you get it to do this thing at this one, the first one with the hot label, that actually changes to every single color of the rainbow. And then, similar thing, if you need to have it on each of the letters, there I'm getting the animation from this function that I had before. And, was it this one? Let's see. Yes. I create a row, and I literally I split the text up in letters, and I give them each their own animation for each of the letters. And that's how you get this one here with the second hot. Okay. I think there's probably some performance stuff in there as well. I don't know what they are. If anybody can think of one, you can tell me. I'm not sure yet exactly, but my gut feel says that I've got lots of these animations running. Maybe there's a performance problem in that situation as well. Now we've got one more left. We've got this rainbow shimmer one with the diagonals over here at the bottom. Now let's see if I can find that one, the gradient text. Now this technique I got from a blog post by Alejandra, and she was talking about how to apply this brush to text. So she was using that moving, shimmering rainbow color on text, which again shows the power of the brush, because it's just a brush she set up, and because it's just a brush, I can apply that brush anywhere where I need it. So here I am applying it to text, and there's some calculations. Let me split this down a bit. There's some calculations set up at the top to just see how the gradient will fit in the big composable like that. And then the control, again, is our friend, remember, infinite transition. And this time, it's a float that's an offset. It's because the gradients have an offset of where the color of the gradient starts, and it's a linear gradient, and so it goes diagonally. And then if you set it to mirror, it'll go, say, from red to blue, and then from blue back to red. And that's how you get a smooth transition of your rainbows across. And then now I have this brush. Again, the brush should have been remembered. And then you can just use this brush on your text, as simple as this. The reason there's a copy here is because this text might have had some other, there might be a style set on this text, and if you copy it, then you don't lose any other styles that have been set up. Okay, so that's that rainbow shimmer at the bottom. Shall we appease the demo gods? So here I have these two. Most of everything works. We saw Memphis working, stars working. The place that's going to crash now is the bitmap, the repeated bitmap of the on iOS. Boom. Okay? And this one, yes, ignore. Now this will turn the demo gods, the vengeance of the demo gods, into a demo, and just rebuild the iOS app to just show you that it really does, in fact, run on iOS. Okay. Okay, so we did the rainbow text. What have we got left? How are we doing for time? I have 5 minutes left. Okay, so I might not finish all of them. Okay, so we actually have most of the tools to be able to do this example already. So I'll give you a few moments while I find the code. So you can see at the top here we've got this rainbow divider. And the rainbow divider is a similar technique. Again, it's a brush with those with a linear gradient with an angle that's animated with an offset. Similarly, this is just a huge, big spacer, again, with a gradient. This time it's a radial one, and you can also see the background color over there is changing. This is just a path with the brush applied, and then the scaling is, again, infinite transition. I'm going a little bit quickly because I think I'm going to possibly run out of time. But this is basically, so there's no new techniques. We've got brushes, we've got remember infinite transitions. Thank you, iOS, you're back. Okay. So that's this one. And then the last thing we need, or the second last thing, is an under construction. Okay, I'm not going to show this code either. It's again, it's just the rainbow colors being animated by offset. Now, the one at the top, you can see it's more janky. That code, I think I should completely just throw away because it's so difficult to understand. It's got rectangles that are rotated with translations and then repeated, and you can see it's actually jank, jank, jank. And the brush with the colors like that work much better. And then text at the top, this is just a box with that brush applied, and then the text can have a shadow underneath it. And then this one at the top here, this is just, again, our friend text marquee or basic marquee that's making it scroll like that. And then the last thing we need is a glitter pointer that looks like this. Okay, that one we can look at the code a little bit. Is this one, glitter box. Let's just take that away. Okay, so the first thing I have for that is just a shape. It's just a class. It's got some parameters that you can set. It's got a life. You can see if you pull these around, you'll see that they fade away and they shrink away. There's some mathematics about where they are and where they're going to be and when they hit the boundaries. This is not really new code. You'll find any of these particle systems. If you just copy the code from there, you can get any of this kind of thing from the particle systems. And then they've got a draw command. Each of these particles, they've got a draw command. So you can see if it's got a positive life. And then this will just draw a circle or whatever the shape is that it needs to draw. So that's the particle itself. And then there's a state object that remembers all of these confetti pieces and adds to it and removes from it. It has a method called next, which will work out what the next position is for all of these particles. And that literally, just like all of the flex, it will just run through them and get their next position. And then I think it's got some companion objects when the size changes to set up the size, to set up the glitters. And then the piece that's interesting, because those are just objects, those are just standard objects. The thing that's interesting is how do you make this thing change and how do you hook it into Compose to make it draw? And what I've got here is, let's see, I've got a box. Okay, this box is this tiny little pink box here, which is this, this magenta box, and it uses pointer input, and it looks for drag gesture. So if you pull the drag gesture, if you pull it and you drag it, then when it gets the drag gesture, it will work out the offset of where you dragged it to, and then it'll update the glitter state to add more glitter flecks in there. And then at the top here somewhere, there is okay, there it's drawing it on the canvas. There's a piece I'm missing, the manual way to update here. I have a launched effect that, well, there's a flag just to make sure it's active. And then every single time a frame comes in, it will make the glitters move and tick. Now this must be inefficient. I'm pretty sure it's inefficient because I'm changing the position of all of these particles on every single frame. But I'm not quite sure how to fix this. Okay, I think we have all the pieces. Now, I have another switch on the screen. It's this one. Watch here. And let's see it in Times New Roman. This gives me so much joy. So you'll say to me, but Maia, those are mostly animated GIFs. Android's not going to be the same. What's the deal with that? And I have an Easter egg button over here. If I click on this, it removes the animated GIFs. So you can see it still looks kind of 90s. We've still got some marquees running in rainbow text. We've still got under construction. My visitor counter still works. This thing still works. I've still got some of the things going. So yeah, if I figure out a way to make the animated GIFs work on Android and iOS, then that's probably just the only thing that's missing. Now these websites, Let's just see what our time is like. Oh, I've got 5 minutes. Perfect. These websites always had a guest book, and they had bookmarks. So the guest book is just going to be like my summary of the things I learned. It's like, if you want to animate something, then you change the state. Wherever I see numbers and colors, or basically any parameter on any of the composables, you can animate that. I love Compose Multi-Platform. I never knew Memphis was a thing. And 90s nostalgia heats up my computer. This one's a bit better than my old computer. And then I can, this guest book will also take a submit. And then this app also has bookmarks, all of the bookmarks. But if you go to the website with the Git repo, you'll also see all of these bookmarks. So now let me just jump back into the slides briefly. This is the summary screen of all the techniques that I used everywhere. I had linear gradients, remember infinite transitions, basic marquee, some animate floats, some animated content, launched effect with frame millis canvas, shader brush, image shader. So this is the summary screen, so that if you need to ask ChatGPT how to do this, these are the words that you have to type in there. Okay. But now you'll tell me, it's 2023, Maia, it's not 1995. What does this all mean to me? Now, I would say, when you're working with an app and a user, there's a conversation going between your user and your app. And the app is trying to tell the user something. And that's like a kind of a body language. So maybe I'm making the user smile, I'm pointing somewhere where the user has to click, I'm updating something, maybe they won a prize or they didn't. And the animations that you can add to your apps are just like the body language that you have when you're talking to people. And what does this app say, though? I mean, this app is someone dancing to talking heads, sporting a mullet with bright baggy pants. But that doesn't have to be your app. Your app could be a banking app. Your app could be a completely different app with a different personality, and you can use exactly the same techniques to provide those kinds of little body language additions to your app, and do what you need to do to communicate your message. Now, if you look at this, you can't imagine that there's something missing. There is something missing. Okay. What's missing is the MIDI soundtrack, right? I was not brave enough to do a MIDI soundtrack cross-platform. That will have to be for a next talk. But I do have a Spotify playlist of cheesy 90s music and a Git repo. So you can get all of the code, and you can get everything from there. That's it.